So in today's session, we'll discuss on transport requests and version management. Transport requests and version management. First, let's see what is a transport request. Before that, we'll try to understand the landscape of any project, SAP projects. Most of the projects, the landscape, the system landscape will be like this: one development system, one quality system, quality in the sense testing, and production system. Dev, tester, QA, production system, right? So in projects, each system will have some name. It depends on the project. They follow different naming standards. For example, PS1, for test, XS1, for prod, PS1. So we maintain each system with a specific name. Okay. So where do we do as a web developer? Where you are going to do your application development, in which environment? Development, test, or production. So you do your application development in development environment. Only in the development environment. You're not going to do any changes, or you are not going to create anything in test system or in production system. You're going to do all your developments, including tables, programs, function modules, whatever the application it is. You're going to do all those development in the development environment, development system, right? Once your development is completed, you're going to move your changes to test system for the further testing, for the complete testing. Once the testing is completed, those applications are moved to production system, right? What is production system? The actual system where actual business will run, right? All the business transactions will run, the live system, whatever the client is using, right? But how can you move the programs or changes from development to test system?
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir.
Yeah, sorry. So we use transport requests. We use a transport request to move changes from one system to another system. In SAP, what do we use to move the changes from one system to another system? We use transport requests. Once your development is completed, you will do one basic testing. What do we call the testing that is performed by the developer? We call it as unit testing or technical unit testing, TUT, or simply unit testing. What is unit testing? Who will perform the unit testing? The developer itself. Whoever developed the application, so the developer will do the unit testing, some basic testing to check whether that program or application is working or not. But who will do the actual testing, complete testing? Testing team, QA team. In which system? Is it in development system? The QA team will test the applications in a test system, QA system. That is a separate server. But how can you move the program, what you created in the development system to test system? So we assign that program to a transport request and we apply that transport request to test system. Once the testing is completed, once the testing team completed the testing and provided the sign off, the same change or the same program will be moved to production system by using a transport request. Okay. So as of now, we haven't created any transport requests. We're simply creating the programs and function modules, but we did not generate any transport requests. Let's see how to create the transport request. Before that, we'll see what are the different types of transport requests. The T code to access transport request, SC09 or SC01. There is another transaction code
Sir,
SC01.
you're not audible, sir.
Okay, wait, okay, 1 second. Okay, so we have three different environments, right? Dev, test, and production. So whatever the applications you develop in development environment, how you are going to move those changes from development to test system for further testing using a transport request. So we need to assign our program to a transport request, and you need to move that transport request from development to test system. So what is the before releasing the transport request to test system? So what the developer will do? The developer will perform a basic testing. What do you call that basic testing? Unit testing or technical unit testing. The developer will do that to check whether the application is working fine or not. The basic testing. Okay. And you prepare the technical unit testing document. Once that is completed, and you release that change to test system for further testing, right? So what is the transaction code to access the transport request? SC09. SC09 is the transaction code to access the transport request. There are different types of transport requests we create, depends on the object type. Most importantly, there are two types of transport requests. Workbench transport requests. Second one, customizing transport request. Workbench transport request, customizing transport request. So when we create workbench transport request and when we create a customizing transport request. Mostly workbench transport request will be created for ABAP programs. DDIC objects. What are DDIC objects? Tables, data elements, domains. These are all the data dictionary objects. DDIC nothing but data dictionary objects. Function modules. Whatever the applications created by ABAP developers, most of the cases we create what type of transport request? Workbench transport requests. Okay. What about customizing? Created for system configurations. Most of the time, customizing transport requests will be created for system configurations by functional functional consultants. That doesn't mean that ABAP developers will create customizing transport requests. ABAP developers will also create when we do some configuration changes in the system, right? Mostly functional consultants. They do a lot of configurations, functional configurations. At the time, they generate customizing transport requests, right? And most of the times, as a ABAP developer, you are going to generate workbench transport requests. Okay, is everyone clear on this?
Yes, sir.
So now from move the change from dev to quality. What is the in most of the projects? Once you completed your application development, any program, what they do quality checks. That means code review. Review your code. Your someone in your team, maybe your technical lead, will review your code, check the naming conventions, and any statements which are obsolete or outdated, right? And they'll also check performance of the program. Once everything is completed, once everything is working, and you are going to do unit testing. Unit testing is a basic testing performed by the developer to find whether the program is working or not. Once that is completed, you are going to release your change to test system using which object? Using transport request. For example, some transport request 100. Once the testing is completed, same transport request will be applied to production system. Okay. Whatever the changes you do here will be available in production system. So let's see how to create the transport requests. Let's create a program. Or I'll just copy this program into a new program. instead of creating from the beginning. Copy, we copy everything. Now here it makes the difference. Till now, what is our object? What is the package you have selected?
Local package.
Local package. For local package, we are not going to generate the transport requests. Whatever the objects you assign to the local package, they are local to the same system. You cannot transport them to the test system. Okay. To transport objects or to create the transport requests, you have to assign a proper package name. What is a package? Package is like a folder like object where you can group all the applications into one package, relevant applications. For example, if you take custom packages, ZMM, here you can group all the material management related objects. ZFI, you can use this package for all finance related application developments, right? So it depends on the project. We follow different package structures. So we need to check when you joined in the project, you have to ask someone, hey, what is the package we are using? What are the packages we are using, right? So what is the package I have to use for this application, right? First, you need to know that. Let's check the existing packages, or we can create a custom package, but mostly it's not our responsibility to create the packages. They are already configured. Someone will create and configure the packages, right? As a web developer, you are just going to use that. Let me search with all custom packages, and let's select one package for our current development. Don't know which package is active, but let's select one. So I'll select this ZDemo package. Okay. So instead of selecting local object, I'm selecting a package name. Click on save. Observe the next pop-up carefully. What it is expecting? Request, transport request. By default, what is this? This is the existing transport request. This is the existing transport request created by the same user, right? Let's create our own transport request. Create. Provide the transport request description. This is very important. Each project follows a separate format here. For example, uh, let's assume it is MM related object, MM task ID. Again, this is different for different projects. What is the version? First version of this program. PO data report. Projects. In some projects, we need to select the project, and again, this is optional. But in some system landscapes, we have to select the project. Click on save. Transport request is generated. A new transport request is generated for our development. Click on continue. Now your program is assigned to a transport request. Your program is assigned to a transport request. So you can transport this program from development system to test system. Where you can check this transport request? Utilities, versions, go to version management. Here you can check the transport request. Okay. Let's go to the transport request T code and check how it is available in the T code. What is the transaction code? SC09.
SC09.
Go to SC09. By default, it will show you username and it will display all the transport requests created for your user. And here you need to observe, you need to select a relevant type. So what type of transport request we generated now? Is it workbench or customizing? Since we created it for the program, it is a workbench transport request. Select that, and even you can select both customizing also if you want to see customizing configurations. Observe this carefully. Status. What is the status of the transport request? Is it modifiable or released? So when we can see modifiable status for the transport request, or when we can see released status. Once we created the transport request, it will be in a modifiable status. So you can still do the changes. If you want to do any changes in the program, you can still do the changes. When it will go to the released status, once your development is completed and released the transport request to test system, then the transport request will be in released status. Okay, can you guys hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, so in SC09, you need to select the relevant transport request type you are looking for, customizing or workbench, or you can select both. What about the status? So as long as your transport request uh, is ready for changes, like accept the changes, more changes, until unless it is in modifiable status. When it will goes to release status, when you released the transport request to test system. So you cannot add any further changes to the transport request once you released it. Okay, so you can add changes as long as the transport request is in modifiable status. Display. So you can see all the transport requests created by you, like by you means this user ID. Since most of us are using common user ID, you can see a lot of objects here, right? So what is the transport request we created? In workbench transport request, observe here, workbench transport request. This is the transport request, right? We generated. So we can see two things here, main task and subtask. You can see two things here, main task and subtask. In subtask, you can see objects, whatever the objects you have assigned to this transport request. Since we have created only one program, you can see one program. Let me add one more object to the transport request. Let me create one more object. Instead of creating from beginning, I'm just copying it. Okay. Continue. Looks like it is copied into temporary package. It is copied into temporary package. Let me see this scenario also. So by mistake, you assigned temporary package. That means local package to the application. Can you transport it to test system? Can you transport this to test system if you assign this to local package?
No, sir.
No, right? For example, by mistake, you selected local package. Now what we need to do? Do we need to delete the object and create again? Not required. We have an option. This one, object dictionary entry. You can find it in any object, programs, tables, data elements, domains. You can find this option in any object. Object dictionary entry. Click on this. So it is showing the local package. Change it, and provide proper package name and save. Immediately, it will ask for a transport request. Okay. Now, this is a separate object, right? Function module is a separate object we created, right? Do we need to create new transport request or need to assign to the existing same transport request? Do we need to create a new transport request for every object, or we can use a existing transport request which is already created?
We can use existing.
Yes, we generally use existing transport request because let's assume someone assigned you one object to develop a PO report. What are the different objects you created for PO data report? What are the different objects you created for the PO data report program? You created one program, 3 different function modules, right?
Yes, sir.
Total 4
Um,
objects you created for that
data
application, right? Now, this is altogether, it's a one complete application, but objects are multiple. One program, 3, 4 function modules. Sometimes you may need to create a database tables, domains, all part of the same application development. PO data report application development, right? So assign all the objects to same transport request. Don't create separate transport request for each object. It will allow, you can create it, but that is not recommended. So assign one application related objects to one transport request. Sometimes we create two, one for the data dictionary objects and other one for the normal programs and function modules. But mostly we use one single transport request for the complete application development, and we assign all the objects created for that application to the same transport request. We never create a new transport request for each object. Okay, clear? Now we are creating, let's assume this function module is also for the same application. Now I am going to find my transport request. Sometimes here it might show a different transport request by default, right? You need to find your transport request. Click on this, find your transport request. What is the transport request you created for this application? Task 100. Double click on this and click on continue instead of creating a new transport request. Activate the object. Now go to the transport request in SC09. Refresh this. Now check the subtask. Now check the subtask of this transport request. One more object is added, right? Function group. Yes or no?
yes, sir.
Let me create one
Yes,
table.
sir.
Let's say I have a requirement for this application. I need to create a structure. We need structures, right? We created the function module, but we have dependent structures, right? We are using a lot of structures, right, in this function module.
Yes, sir.
So we need to make sure those structures are also assigned to transport requests. Otherwise, if you don't transport structures and you transport only program and function module to test system, what will happen? Can you execute this? Can you execute this program without transporting the dependent structures? No, it
No,
will throw
sir.
runtime errors. Even the transport itself will fail because you are using structures in the function module, but you are not transporting them to test system along with this function module, right? So you need to make sure all dependent objects, including structures, table types, whatever you created for this application, all of them are added to the transport request. Okay. Go to SC11. I'll just copy this structure, or let's assume we have assigned it to the local object. Now change it to main package. Go to object dictionary entry, instead of local, assign the package, save. Now choose your transport request. This one, continue. Do the same for rest of the structures. Go to object dictionary entry. Here we are changing after creating the structure, but next time when you are creating the structure itself, assign the proper package name. Okay. Now let's go to
So,
the transport
sorry,
request.
what is the package we selected? Z demo?
Yeah, ZDemo. This is some
Okay.
package which is already available, some custom package. Someone has already
Okay.
created this. So it is just a package like in projects, right? We create ourselves, like not the developer, but module wise, we maintain multiple packages in the projects, right? So we are going to
Okay.
assign that package name, depends on the module what we are developing.
Okay.
There are standard packages too, but usually we don't use those standard packages in the development. Like if you go to the standard packages, you can see all the programs assigned to this. For example, MZ. This package is for material management related objects, standard package, MG. You can find all the standard applications created for material management module, MG and
Okay.
MGA, right? So similarly, we
So
create,
what
yeah,
what is package actually? Or what is package means? Is it
package is like a folder, like just assume like a folder. You are going to group all the applications into one package. Let me open this
okay?
MGA. MGA is one package. Let
Mm-hmm.
me complete this transport request. Let's go to SC80. Select the package here. MGA is the standard package. Check here what you can find. Different objects, including programs, tables, data dictionary objects. All
Okay.
the tables related to this material management module are assigned to this package. And
So,
table types,
okay.
structures.
Mm-hmm.
So you're grouping, like you're saving all the one module related objects into one package. You are grouping one module related objects into one package.
So in a typical development, do we select the standard package or we create
we
a
we
custom
use
one,
custom packages. We use custom packages most of the times.
custom package?
99% we
Okay.
use the custom packages.
So all the developments related to one area, it will go to that package
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, so in the initial project setup, someone will create packages, maybe 3-4 packages, depends on the module.
Okay.
So for example, ZSD is one package. Or in these days in S4 HANA, we are using like Z, O2C, order to cache. All the order to cache
Mm.
module related objects, we use one package. P2P, procure to pay
Okay.
module related, we are using one package, right? So we are using
Okay.
like this. These are already created
Okay.
by someone. As a developer, we are going to just ask someone like, what is the package we need to use for order to cache applications? And if you know the package, going forward, we are going to assign objects to that package.
Okay. So we don't always create the
No,
package
you
and
don't
all. It's
create it.
like
No, no.
okay.
It's a one-time
Okay.
project setup. Someone will create the package and we are going to use it.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Now let's go to the transport request. So we assigned structures also, right, to the same transport request. I've just refresh. Now you see structures are also added to the transport request. Double click on the subtask, double click. So you can see all the objects added to the transport request. You need to make sure before going to release changes, before going to release your application from development to test system, you need to make sure all the objects created are assigned to this package. You need to check here in the go to subtask and check the objects. Whatever the objects you created are assigned to this package or not. Did we assign all the objects to this package? Whatever required for this program, dependent objects. We assigned function module. We assigned only two structures, right? We have created table types also, right? So you need to make sure those table types are also added to this transport request. Without those dependent objects, you cannot execute that function module or the program. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
Now there is another scenario. Sometimes we might add some unwanted objects, unnecessary objects to the transport request, right? Now, how to deal with that situation? We should not transport that object to the test system. We don't want to transport that object to the test system. What we need to do? First, let's say this program is not required for me. This is not required for us. Now, what we need to do? Go to the relevant transaction code SC38. If you really think this is not required, delete this.
So we have to delete the program itself, or you cannot just remove it from the transport.
See, if you just release it from the transport, again, next time if someone will change the program, again, it will create one more transport request, right? If you think this program is not at all useful, just delete it and remove from the transport request. Select the object, click on delete. Now, that object is deleted from the transport request. Or if you just want to delete it from the transport request, simply select that object and delete. So it won't transport. That will be available in development system, but you are not
Okay.
transporting it. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, but later if we decide to add into a
Yeah,
transport, we can
just
add
click
it.
on change. It will again ask for a transport request.
Okay.
Let me create the program again. I'll quickly show the version management, how version management will work. Copy this. Assign the package here, proper package, so that it will ask for a transport request. Select your transport request. See, we are using same transport request for one application, one complete application. One application might contain different objects, right? Okay, looks like it's a different program anyway. Our transport is assigned, our program is assigned to the transport request. Let's say all our activities are completed, development activities are completed. We completed the program development, code review is completed, and unit testing is also completed. And unit testing is simple like go to the program. As a developer, go to the program, just provide some inputs and execute. Check whether it is displaying any output or not, right? And going in detailed testing means checking the values. Are we getting the correct quantities or not? Are we getting the correct price or not? Is that calculation is working as expected or not? You may not do all this, right? Testing team will take care of that testing, okay? Actual testing. But First, you are going to check whether all your program functionalities are working or not. That is what unit testing. So your unit testing is completed. You got the sign off to apply changes to the test system. What you need to do? Go to SC09. Make sure you selected this modifiable status display. Currently in which status it is? The transport request. Modifiable status, right? So you can assign any new objects or you can change the existing objects which are assigned to this transport request. Okay, you can assign new objects to the transport request or you can change these objects, whatever you assigned here in the transport request. Now, release the transport request. How to release the transport request to test system? First, you need to release the subtask. Select the subtask, click on this truck symbol, release. What it is saying? ZDemo merge PO data is inactive. This is not active. Looks like one of the objects in this transport request is not active. It is active only, right? Why it is saying inactive? Maybe let me refresh the transaction code. SC09. Check the objects. Double click. It is active only. Before going to release the transport request, we can do one check to make sure the transport request is consistent or not. Or is there any inactive objects in the transport request? Select the subtask, go to request, choose complete check, and you can check for the syntax errors in the objects, or you can show the inactive objects, or if you simulate release, if you click on simulate release, what it will do? It will just simulate the release process. It won't release actually, but it will just simulate it. I don't know why it is saying inactive. It is already active. Let me open it in SC38, make sure there is no inactive objects. Change it. So activated it. I'll close the program, go back. Again, simulate release, complete check, simulate release. Looks like it is not updated yet. That status, activation status is not updated yet. That's why it is showing it is still inactive. But if you see here, the program is already active. Or let me check the text elements. That's what. These text elements are inactive. Let's activate this. Selection text and text elements, whatever generated, these are inactive. Go back to the program. Now go to the transport request. Go back. Now simulate release. Complete check. Simulate release. Now before going to release, you can do this check. So it is successful. Simulation is successful. That means no errors in the transport request. We need to do one more check. Few more, like there are multiple checks. Syntax check. It will show is there any syntax errors, like any issue with quality standards or syntax errors. You can see here no syntax errors. You can also see consistency check, request consistency. So request is consistent, no issues with the transport request. Now release it. Now we are actually releasing it. Release the transport request. If you observe this tick mark, it is in, now it is in release status. Subtask, we release the subtask. What is the next step? Once the subtask is released, we need to release a main task as well.
So that's the sequence always, like first subtask and then main task.
Yes, we should release all the subtasks. Like in some cases, you might see multiple subtasks here. Since multiple developers are working on the same program, sometimes it will generate multiple subtasks for the same transport request. So at the time, you need to release all the dependent subtasks first, and then you need to release the main task. Without
Okay.
releasing the subtask, you cannot release the main task.
Main task.
Okay.
So I have one question. So if same person is, no, not same
Yeah.
person, like you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Two or three people working on the same object, right?
Right.
Same program.
Yes.
So how it is controlled actually? Is it like, is it allowed to work like
Yeah.
people at the same time, or is there any control?
It won't allow you to change in parallel.
Okay.
Both of you cannot change in parallel, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can change one after one. Like you do some changes one time, the other developer will do changes after some time. Like when you are not in change mode, it will allow
Okay.
that. But once, for example, I've created this transport request, right, for this program,
Okay.
and you're trying to edit it. But I'm not, see, I've closed this program. You're trying to edit
Mm-hmm.
this program in a separate session, right? So then it will
Separate
ask for a new task.
transport.
Yes. No, it will ask for
Okay.
a new task. It won't allow you to create new transport request. It will
Okay.
add one new task in the same transport request with your user ID. For example, my user ID is best. Your user
Mm-hmm.
ID is some test. Now, there one more subtask will be added to this main transport request
Mm-hmm.
using with your username. Separate transport request
Okay.
and your username. The same program will be added to your subtask also.
Okay.
Okay, but it won't allow you to edit in parallel, but you can do
Parallel.
one after one. You can work on same object.
Okay.
It will generate two subtasks.
Okay. Got it.
Now we release the transport request. What is the next step? In few projects, they use STMS underscore QA transport request, transaction code. Looks like that configuration is not available, STMS QA transport configurations. So what you can do, depends on the project process. We follow different things. Like in some projects, auto import will be enabled. Auto import will be enabled. That means once you release the transport request, it will automatically import it to test system. You don't need to do anything. It will automatically apply those changes to test system. But in some projects, there is an approval process. Generally, we use STMS underscore QA transaction code to provide that approval. Once that is approved, it will automatically apply to the, because everyone should not release a transport request, right? So that you can do whatever the changes you want, and you should not apply it to test system, right? There is some approval process. Someone has to review it, and if it is a valid object, then only you have to apply it to the test system. So in some projects, we just send this transport request to the basis team. Basis team are the system admins who will take care of this transport request movement. Send this transport request to the basis team, referring that, hey, I've released this transport request. Please apply these changes to the test system. So he or she will take care of the transport request and apply changes to the test system. Okay. Once the changes are applied to the test system, go to the test system and check the objects. All the objects are imported correctly or not into the test system. Okay. Once the testing is completed, the same basis team will take care of moving the transport request from, not from test system. It apply same changes to the production system as well. Apply same transport request to the production system as well. Once the testing is complete. Now we have completed releasing, right? Now the program, the transport request is in released status. Now go to the program, go back to the program, and try to do some changes. C38. This is the program, right? What we created. Change it. Do some changes in this. I will just change this code. I'm just adding some changes. I'll add binary search. Before that, I'll sort it. What is the prerequisite to use binary search? What is the prerequisite to use binary search? That should
Short
be
internal
sorted.
table.
Make sure you're sorting your internal table. So I just added some changes to the existing program, which is already released to the test system, which is already released to the test system. Now click on save. What it is expecting? It is expecting a new transport request because the previous transport request is already applied to test system. Now, if you want to do any changes, next time what you need to do, you need to create a new transport request. Task 100. Now, what is the version of it? Second version of the second change, right? Version 1 is already released. This is second version. Again, it is just a format which we follow in the projects. Each project follows different formats. Click on save. A new transport request is created. Activate. I will remove this commented code also. Activate. So changes are completed. So let's assume first we applied the change to the test system, right? In testing, they found some issues. So to correct those issues, again, we are changing the program in development system, and we have generated one more transport request, and we'll release the transport request to again. Once your changes are completed, once your unit testing is completed, again release the transport request to test system to apply those changes, your fix or your program corrections, whatever. Go to modifiable. You can see your transport here. Again, same process. Check. First check the consistency and simulate release, then release the transport request.
So in this case, now once we release the transport, and in the testing, if you fail,
Yeah.
new transport and make the change. Okay, we don't
Yes.
use the old transport.
Oh, that is gone. So once you release it to test system, that's gone. We are
Okay,
not going to
okay,
use it again.
okay,
You need to
okay.
create
So
a new
for every
transport
change,
request
we'll
for
have
the
to
new
create
chain.
a new transport.
Yeah. As long as modifiable, as long as the transport request is in modifiable status, you can use it. Once you released, that is gone. Like we cannot use it again. You need to generate new transport request for the new changes.
Okay, so in QA, yeah, in this case, if we fixed it, we send the new transport that is issue is fixed. So when we move the change to production,
Hmm.
so we select the change to
Yeah, both
production, or
all these transport
okay,
requests in sequence. We need to apply all these transport requests, multiple transport requests one by one to the production system in a sequence. Okay, whatever the order you followed to release, you are going to generally basis will follow the same order to apply all those transport requests to quality system, sorry, production system. You're not going to apply only one transport request. Whatever the transport requests, multiple transport requests you created for this
Okay, but the
application,
first one, the error one, we don't
we have to apply. Everything we have to apply. Each transport request we have to apply, even the first one. First one, we don't have any error in the transport request, right? There is some issue in the program logic, right? We corrected that program logic in the follow-up transport request. But if you don't apply the first transport request, whatever the objects you have assigned to that first transport request,
Okay.
you cannot transport them to production. We have structures also, right, in the first transport request. If you don't apply the first transport request to production, the structures and function modules, whatever you assign to the first transport request, not going to be transported to production, right? So you
Okay,
have to
okay,
apply
got it.
all the transport requests in the sequence.
Got it. Okay.
So that you are not going to miss any objects. Now release the main task as well. So now your transport request is released. You can find your transport request is released objects. Your transport request is released and ask basis team to apply this transport request to test system and go to the test system and verify whether this change is applied or not. Is this change reflected in the test system program or not? Now over the time until the testing is completed, we might do changes multiple times, right? Maybe we released this transport request, we release this change. Maybe after some time they might come up with some change. The testing team might find one more issue. Then again, what you need to do? Again, go to the program or function module, change that program, apply that change, and release that program to test system. Over the time, you might create multiple transport requests, right? You are going to generate multiple versions. Now go to the program. Now, if I want to know what are the changes I developed, what are the changes I did in the initial transport request, and what are the different changes I did over the time. How can you know that? You can compare the versions. You can compare the versions. Go to utilities, versions, version management. Here you can see how many transport requests you can see here. 2 transport requests, right? Tier 1 and tier 2. So this is the initial transport request what we released, and this is the next transport request. Let's say if you want to find what are the changes you did between first transport request and second transport request. If you want to know what is the previous version of the code, now if you go to the program, you can see only updated code, right? The recent changes what we did, right? We added the binary search. These changes you can see. But if you want to see what are the previous version, what is the previous version of this program before doing these changes, how the code is available in the program. For that, go to utilities, versions, version management, select this object, select this first transport request, click on display. This is first version of the program. If you see, this is first version of the program. No binary search here, right? If you want to see previous code, what is the previous code available in the program? You can check that in version management. Okay? Or if you want to compare both versions, control and select both transport requests, you can compare 2 different versions. What is the code we implemented in version 1 and what are the changes we did in version 2? Click on this, compare. You can see here side by side. Whatever the changes you do, you can see highlighted in this highlighted color. You can see, right? So I did some changes here. If you see previous version, these are in the same line, but here I split into different lines. I've added one statement here, line number 55. Observe this, sub r equal to 0, but here I've added one more additional code. That's why it is highlighted in the highlighted color. Here I've added a sort statement in the next version. Here I've applied the binary search. Here I've added one blank space. You can compare the code between version 1 and version 2. Okay, by selecting two different transport requests. Now,
Sorry, can you
yeah,
just show how did you compare? Sorry, I missed that. Like,
yes. So let me come back to the version management. Go to utilities, version management. So here we have only two versions because we released only two times. But in general, in support projects, you might see 10, 15 versions also, right? So if you want to compare the changes between one version and another version, select both versions, version 1, version 2. Use
mhm.
control, select and click on this, compare. So it will display the screen,
Okay.
comparison screen, side by side. And there are two views, single column parallel view. This is another view. Here also you can see the differences, but in a different format. Okay. Here also you can see first initial code and new code,
Okay.
or this would be more comfortable. You can see side by side, version 1 and version 2. Okay. Let's say you messed up something in a support project. One program is perfectly working in production system, but there is a small change in the program. By doing that change, you completely messed up the application. You transported this to production. This is not working at all. Previously it is working fine, but there is small issue. But you did some code changes. It's completely not working due to your code changes. Now immediately what we need to do, at least we should make it work, right? After your change, it is not completely
Sure.
working. So immediately what can you do? We need to revert your code changes, right? We need to revert your code changes, right? Whatever the code changes you did, because of that code changes, the program is not at all working. How can you revert the code changes? We need to go to the program and go by the each line. So you need to find each line and do the changes like this manually to correct the changes, remove the sort statement, remove the binary search. Do you need to do all these changes like that? That's not necessary. If you want to just revert the program changes, whatever the changes you did, you just want to revert it to previous version. What you can do, go to utilities, versions, version management. I just want to go back to the previous version. So select the previous version. Before that, compare the both versions. You need to click on retrieve, retrieve the previous version. So what it is saying, current version of the program is overwritten with the older version. Okay. So current version will be overwritten with the previous version. Create the transport request. Task 100, 3, your data report. So click on save. Go back, change it and activate. Now what? Now which version you can see here? It is reverted to previous version, right? Can you find short statement here? Can you find binary
Yes.
search here?
No.
No. The program is change it to the previous version. Whatever the code changes you have applied in the second version are completely gone, right? Yes or no? Now transport this
Yes,
program
sir.
to test and then to production system. Now if you go to version management, you can find three different versions. 1, 2, 3, right? This is the active version. Rest of the two are inactive version, and you can compare. You can always compare any two versions. You can compare all multiple versions. Now we have three, right? You can compare any two, initial version and this version, active version. Compare. There's no changes, right? Because we reverted it to first version because both are same. This version and this version code is same, right? Because we reverted into first version. 3 and 1 are both same. If you compare these two versions, version compare, you can find the differences, code differences, right? So in support projects, this version management is very important. You can check these versions for the function modules, programs, data dictionary tables, anything. There are only few objects where we cannot check the version comparison, right? But most of the programs, function modules, tables, you can check the version comparison to know what is the previous version of the code. Okay? Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.